The wrong people, the wrong team can derail the company and its growth, can really create a very different company than what you would want as a business owner.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Brett Gilliland. And every episode, my team and I have an opportunity to meet with lots of business owners who are not just any business owner, but these are business owners who've had some success. They've gotten their business off the ground. They've grown it to that seven-figure mark or more. And their team's grown, and they're here to share some of their real lessons learned. And they're also here to share some of the things that they're currently working on to continue to grow their business. Today, my guest is Ellie Perlman. Ellie is the founder and CEO of Blue Lake Capital. At Blue Lake Capital, Ellie and her team help investors who want to get involved in multifamily housing. They have many properties across the US, thousands of units under their investment portfolio, and they help investors who want to get involved in that kind of investing. Welcome to the show, Ellie. Appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you, Brad. It's great to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Blue Lake Capital? Give it a little more context than what I was able to give it, and then we'll jump into our sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, we're owners and operators of multifamily assets. We identify assets, usually 200 to 500 units at a time, in great markets like the Phoenix, Arizona market, DFW, the Carolinas, etc. And we put the asset on the contract, and then we raise money from investors. We put our money in the deals, and other investors, which are doctors, attorneys, tech executives, business owners, they all chip in. $100,000 checks up to 25 million was the largest one we've taken, and together we buy the asset and then we manage it for our investors to get quarterly or monthly yield. And after about 3 to 5 years, we turn the asset around, we sell it, and everyone split the sale proceeds. So that's what we do. We are essentially a company that manages properties, multifamily assets for investors, and we own it together with them. We were actually awarded one of America's fastest growing private equity companies or private companies by Financial Times and Inc. magazine. And it's a very important accomplishment for us, especially since a decade ago, I wasn't even in the U.S. So I moved to the United States in 2014 and got my MBA degree, and I kind of built my career since I graduated from business school. So
Very good. Yeah. Well, I went to your website. I looked at your impressive history, you personally and as a business. It's great when you get those I don't know, those little signals of recognition from outsiders that say, "Hey, you're doing it. You're growing fast." And I think that's actually a great segue into our conversation because you've learned a lot in that fast growth that you guys have experienced at Blue Lake. Not only are you doing great things for your clients, your investors, but you're also learning as a business owner how not to just be great at real estate deals and managing properties, but you're learning how to become a capable business building CEO, right? And that's a personal journey. And so we'd love to hear at least one, maybe a couple key lessons that you've learned in your own growth personally and in the growth of your business that might be helpful to other business owners.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've learned along the way is how important people are when it comes to building your business. The wrong people, and generally speaking, people, your employees, can really make or break your business. The wrong people, the wrong team can derail the company and its growth, can really create a very different company than what you would want as a business owner. And the right team can really help pushing it can help push you as a leader and an owner to make the right decisions, to make tough decisions, and they'll be able to push back and not just say yes to everything that you ask them to do. Um, and so I've learned pretty early on that people who are good and they're a good fit when the company is at a certain stage. They're not the right fit when the company grows. Either they're not interested in becoming part of a more established company, or they just don't have the skills to do it. And um, it's been a very important and expensive lesson that I've learned, that really having the right people is key to the success of any company. And it's really hard to find the right people and the right team. And as a CEO, my number one job is to find the best people to perform, the job that I need them to perform. And so it means that I'm always hiring. I'm always talking with A players, with rock stars, even if I'm not hiring for that position, because you can never know what's going to happen with your team. You can never know who's going to move out, who's going to transition, or who you're going to promote, and you will need someone to fill up, their place. And so that's one of the main things that I've learned. And when I started back in 2017, my first hire was an admin. I needed someone to help me schedule meetings between myself and investors. And so someone to take all the administrative tasks away. That was the first hire. Today, I'm hiring. Today, I hire people that I pay them very, very nice, 6-figure salaries. And I always make sure that even if my company is small, that they have room to grow and they can grow, because people always want to move up to the next level, not just in salary, but also in title, in responsibilities. They want to learn more things. And that's also another challenge for someone who's starting building a business. Where do you go up from here, and what are the development plans that you have for your employees, because they want to know that they have somewhere to aspire for, and that the next step is very that the path is very clear to them.
Totally agree. Yeah, I love everything that you've shared, Ellie. If I can do my job of trying to summarize some key points, I would
Yeah.
start with, at the highest level, your business depends on you building a great team, right? We all need to have the right people around us. And you snuck in another important item here that I want to call out, that the right team today might not be the right team tomorrow. As your business goes through different stages, you might outgrow some of those people if they don't do what it takes to keep up, or they might not have interest in doing what's required at the next stage of business, or they might not enjoy that stage of business. Higher levels of, I don't know, consistency and process, and it's just different as your team grows. It's not the small, scrappy, we're all just one team, everybody wearing multiple hats. Now we're starting to specialize more, and there's more intercommunication needs, and so there's coordination effort, there's process, there's documented roles, all of those growing up stages. Some people don't like that, and some people don't want to do the work to keep going into those stages. And so I think you've called out some really important lessons. um, is there anything else you want to, as I hear you saying, I've gotten good at always hiring. I think about salespeople. There's like a motto out there for salespeople: always be closing, right? ABC. But for business owners, for leaders, I think it's always be looking for talent. I don't know that it's not ABC, but always be closing talent. I'll always be courting talent, maybe. Um, and I hear that coming out in you. I'm like, yeah, we've got to be watching for talent. We got to be developing relationships with people who might be exactly what we need in the future, even if we're not hiring today. So those were a lot of really, really good golden nuggets that you just shared. Anything else you want to add to any one of those points to drive them home more or make them more practical for people?
Um, I think there's the one thing that I would say is that there's a misconception that the cheapest talent can help you build a business on a budget, which is incorrect. You get exactly what you pay for. When it comes to the entry level position. So if you think you're going to pay, I don't know, X amount of dollars, and you're going to get someone great, unless you're hiring overseas, which is very much hit or miss, you're probably not going to get the best value for every dollar you're spending. Um, and then on the flip side, there's a misconception that I've also learned that if you're going to pay someone a lot of money, they're going to bring great results because they're worth it. They're going to make it great. They're going to take a lot off of your plate and march the company to the next um, phase. And you should never trust one person to do it. It's all a team effort. Everyone needs to push forward. And if you think you're going to pay someone a lot of money to bring instant results, it rarely happens.
Mm.
Rarely happens. So those misconceptions on both kind of sides of the spectrum I've experienced, and I've made those bitter mistakes, and they were very costly. But there are a lot of books out there about how to build companies and scale them. And I went to a very technical school, and at MIT they teach you how to build winning teams and how to raise money from investors to invest in your company, take it to the next level. But there's a lot that nobody can really teach you because everyone's experience is so different, and the needs are so different that you just have to go through those lessons. You cannot avoid it. It's just like dating. You cannot potentially read a book that will cover all the bases. So you're going to make absolutely zero mistakes while you're dating. It does not, it doesn't exist. So you have to learn, you have to accept the fact that you are making mistakes and you will make mistakes until the day you die. And you're going to learn from it and it's going to be painful. But the gain, once you're smarter, more experienced, the gain is going to be bigger than the pain. And for many, many business owners that are players that are they're very hard on themselves, and it took me a while to acknowledge the fact that I've made mistakes and admit that this is okay, that you can't succeed and you can't achieve anything meaningful without mistakes. And I know you read about it, yeah, and you understand, yes, of course everyone makes mistakes. But when it comes to you making those mistakes, I find that me and a lot of other um, company founders and CEOs, they don't forgive themselves. They are judging themselves very harshly, and it's not leading to any meaningful result because it's just gonna you're penalizing yourself and you're setting yourself, you know, um, back, and you need to move and march forward. And so that was also another process of learning and making peace with the fact that you made mistakes, and it's all for the best because you're going to learn from it, which is a whole nother topic for discussion.
Yeah, totally. And it sounds like you and I have made some similar types of mistakes where it feels like sometimes you just set fire to a stack of your own money. It's like, I'm burning some more money. I'm making mistakes, right? It feels that way sometimes. And those mistakes can be very costly, but it's part of the journey. I think what you're calling out is that entrepreneurship is one of the very best self-development paths that there is on the planet. Like, you're constantly learning and growing. If you're an entrepreneur successfully growing a business, you're gonna make lots of mistakes. It's gonna it's gonna feel like it's costing you a lot of money, but it's sort of like the price of admission if you want to grow yourself and your business to the next level. You're gonna have some of these experiences along the
Yeah.
way. Not to beat yourself up about that, but just accept it's part of the growth journey. I like what you're saying there, Ellie. I appreciate you sharing that. Let's shift gears now and go from lessons that you've learned to things you're wrestling with right now. Something I might be able to help you with, that in the process of helping you, I can help some others who are surely going through similar things.
Yeah. So, I think one of the main things that I'm dealing with as a CEO is leading my team through change, and kind of growing from a small company to a more established company. There are a lot more processes that we need to have. Otherwise, company of four or versus 15 versus 50 is not the same companies. And so one of the things that we're going through right now is making sure that we have the right processes in place, but also making those changes and growing and becoming more established, more institutional. Um, some team members don't like it. Some team members don't have the personality for it or the skills for it. Um, so that's what we're going through right now, kind of managing that process.
Mm.
And I'm trying to be tuned in to my management's, my leaders' needs, but also the individual contributors' needs and how they perceive it. Because you want to grow, but you don't want to demoralize your people. How do you find the right balance? That's the hardest thing. How do you
Yeah.
communicate it, and how do you deal with those changes with your team?
I love that issue. I don't love that you're struggling with it, but I love the way you've described it. You've teed it up, and it's something that we all have to go through if we're going to grow. And I found it fascinating, Ellie, without doing this on purpose, you threw out some numbers of different a
Mm,
number of team members with each stage. You said, having four is different than 15 is different than 50. And we always talk on this show about the ones and threes of revenue. How every time you triple in the size or production of your business, you're at a new stage. And so
mm,
from 300,000 to a million, there's a stage, 1 to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 30, and so on. And you've got to be able to shift gears to grow into that next stage. Well, again, inadvertently, you said four team members, call it five, four or five, you triple that to 15, and you triple 15 and you're approaching 50, right? And you call that in your mind differences that are roughly a tripling at each stage when you said 4 or 15 or 50. And what we've seen is that somewhere around, five or six team members, when you're approaching that $1 million mark, that's different than when you have 15, 20 people at that 3 million mark, and when you have 50 or 100 people on the other end at that 10 million mark. And whether it's people or revenue, neither is a perfect proxy, but there is a stage change that's happening. As your current machine maxes out what it can do, you have to level up. And some of your people can stay in the same roles they were in. If they were in like an individual contributor role as a, I don't know, a graphic designer, or an account executive or something, maybe there are certain roles that can just stay pretty consistent as your team and your business scales. But then there are other roles like leaders of these emerging functions. Those leadership roles in particular, they have to have different levels of skill as you triple in size, and they got to be more familiar with more mature systems and processes, and even you know software solutions that become more complex as the size of your business grows. So I think you've raised a really important issue. Ellie, if you were to put in your own words, what does it cost you or the business if you can't get your team members to come along on this growth journey? Like, what are some of the real expenses of not enrolling them and progressing them forward?
I mean, you always have the risk of people leaving, or being demoralized, which means
Hmm.
that if they leave, and not everyone is going to leave, but there's always going to be a few. The cost of hiring and training are very high, and then if they are demoralized, then or if they're upset about the fact that now there's a lot more busy work, if they perceive it as busy work, um, then demoralized people don't produce results, and so the bottom line of the business is going to suffer. That's essentially what's going through my mind as possible, impact of growth. And every growth, when Facebook grew, I think at a certain stage, the entire leadership team was let go because they
Yeah.
couldn't. There was an understanding that they could have taken the company to a certain level, and they couldn't beyond that, and their skills were just not the right skills. Um, and so, that's, as an owner takes the business to the next level, they need to review and say who should we keep and who would drag the team down, and not be a good fit. And there's always people that are going to do great in all stages because they're like chameleons, and they actually joined because they wanted to be part of the growth and they're excited, and they usually are the ones who contribute to the growth. And there's the ones who like it where it is now, and they just don't want any change.
Yeah.
And when my company was small, yeah, I mean, I've had, when we started to get um, more professional and kind of start growing, we had people that left because they said we want to be remote, we want to work at our leisure, and this is a very very different company than the company that we've joined. And I understand. I also did not want them there because they're just not going to be the right fit. And we have some employees that started from the very beginning and they're still with us, and they love seeing the change, and they're a
Yeah.
big part of the change. And they loved it when it was small, and they love it even more when it's getting bigger and bigger. And so, um, I mean, the cost of not handling that growth and not attending to people's needs could be very high.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I just want us to be really clear in our minds about that. Everybody listening, because often we don't move. Somehow, as human beings, we've got this part in our brain that's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like I got only so
Mm.
many cycles to put on things that I need to be working on, and we sort of, I don't know, procrastinate. We defer thinking about this issue that you've raised, and I'm trying to raise the importance of it with the cost analysis, even if it was just kind of napkin based math here. But if you have people who don't make it as you're trying to move, there's real hiring and onboarding costs. That's for
Hmm.
sure. But then if you don't make these changes and you keep people who are disengaging, then the business of your growth could stall, which could mean many multiples in your valuation, or many years added to your own exit plan. So the stakes are pretty high, I think, is the bottom line. So let's talk about ways that we can help people, bring people along in the process, have them feel all in, completely engaged. One way is through your planning process. And I've seen some businesses do this really well, and I've seen some miss an opportunity. What I mean by that is, as a team grows, and you've mentioned, like, we're not four people anymore. We got 15, 20 people, and as the team grows, it's impractical to have everybody on the team around the table when we're doing annual planning or quarterly planning. But it isn't impractical. In fact, it's still very preferable in my mind to get all of those people together in other ways to give input to that process on the front end, and then a way to close the loop with them after the planning happens that keeps them really tied in. So let me be more specific about that. Let's say you have, Ellie, what's your planning rhythm look like now? You have some form of leadership team that gets together every quarter, every on a yearly
Yep,
basis to do planning? Yeah.
every
Okay.
quarter. Mhm.
Yeah, and you don't have the full team there today, correct? You're too big for that.
Yeah, of course, just
Yeah,
leadership.
just leadership. Okay. So what I would recommend is, before that leadership offsite happens, if you could spend even 2.5 hours, like a long lunch over some pizza and salad or whatever people like to eat, and you involve them in the process of giving input on the front end to things we ought to be thinking about. And we use some simple exercises that are really effective in getting people to go from their very siloed, role specific lens to a more company wide lens as they think about what matters and sharing their input. And so I'll share a few exercises here real quick. We do one called accomplishments. If we're doing quarterly planning, we have everybody look back over the previous quarter, or the one that we're wrapping up, and we say, all right, what have we accomplished together? Sometimes we don't take stock of all the good stuff that we've done over the quarter. And so for 15-20 minutes, we're just writing up on the board as quickly as we can what everybody shouts out as their accomplishments. And one team member will say, oh, and didn't you so and so accomplish this, and they'll start to recognize each other. And anyway, they start looking back and getting energy from all the progress that you've made in the last 90 days, because you guys are moving fast, right? And there's lots of good things happening, but we don't always stop to recognize it. So I'll do that for 15-20 minutes. The next exercise we go through is called lessons learned. And we'll say, okay, we accomplished all of this in the last 90 days. What have we learned? Because every payroll, you're investing in your company's growth. And often we lose the learnings from that period of time. We did a lot during that time. What lessons do we need to be able to capture that we can leverage for the future, not reinvest to learn again? So we'll do accomplishments, we'll do lessons learned, and throughout this process, we'll tell everybody there, hey, your functional lens, right? The role specific lens that you have is amazing, but let's try to put on our company hat as we do these things. And so we're bringing them out of the day to day, and we're getting them to think higher level, more strategic, more company wide. And we're doing accomplishments and lessons learned. And then we'll flip over into, and I know you're familiar with these, Ellie, because you went to a very reputable MBA program, but we'll go into a simple SWOT exercise. And we'll have everybody take inventory of, we'll look internally first, strengths and weaknesses, which is internally focused. And it's just like I said, we're taking inventory. Okay, what strengths do we have as a team? And we need to disconnect from that emotionally a little bit. This is not like everybody like boosting their own team's strengths and pointing fingers at other people's weaknesses, but it is just being very real. If we just look around, almost like a news reporter, just the facts. What are the facts? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? As we involve the larger team in that conversation, we're not only getting good perspective from them on those important ideas, but they're thinking more company wide still, right? We're getting them to enroll as thought owners in the business, not just I know my role, my box, and I stay in it. So we'll do that with them, about 15 minutes on strengths, about 15 minutes on weaknesses, and then we'll turn their attention outward and say, okay, as we look outside the walls of our business, what's going on externally? What threats are happening? What opportunities are out there? If I usually flip those around, opportunities and then threats. Another way to couch that is trends. What kind of trends are happening in the market? What trends are happening in consumer preferences? Ellie, in your case, what trends are happening in multifamily investment, right? And you just start to lay out some of those things in the form of opportunities and threats. And just by going through those simple exercises with all of your team, including the leadership team, then at the end of this, we're getting to a couple hours in. Then I want every person on the team to just sit back and look at all the great input that we put together and say, given all of this great stuff we talked about, what are the biggest issues facing Blue Lake today? Because the leadership team is about to go off site and talk about the most important strategic issues for our business. We want your perspective on what's the most important things for us to be talking about. And I would have each team member write down their top three. This is the most strategic thing that I can think of. And I like to form it in a question of, how do we accomplish X given Y reality, or while Y obstacle exists, right? And I want them to write it all out. How do we accomplish this thing that we all think is important? Because we just went through all these exercises. How do we accomplish this important matter for Blue Lake given these obstacles or these realities? And if each team member will tee up their top three strategic issues, now you've got a wealth of input from your team. The leadership team can go off site, and they have a jump start now on their off site. That time wasn't wasted by having them involved. It's just everybody got to do it together. Now the leadership team can go off and wrestle with those issues and come back and say, team, that was amazing. Here's what we came up with: a draft of the priorities for the coming quarter, or for the coming year. And it's and the team kind of gets it, because while they weren't at the offsite, they heard the input. You guys give them enough context or color at what happened at the insight and say, we're about 95% baked on these priorities. Here's what we think we need to do over the next 90 days or over the next year. What do you guys think? Do you poke some holes in this? Ask us some questions. and then you do a little refining to finalize that. But then the whole team doesn't just have, this is my box, my
Mhm.
perspective. I'm limited in my view, or limited in my care, frankly. So now I've been part of the process. I see what the team is up to, and I'm excited about where we're going. I feel some connection to it. So anyway, we have limited time on these episodes, Ellie, and I got a little passionate there. I may have like word vomited on you, but I hope that that gives you an idea, a very practical thing that you can do to really enroll people at a new level. And when you see people dropping off, if they're not engaging with excitement in this activity, they're not the right people to go with you where you're going next. You can see it. The right people will light up at this because you're
Yeah,
inviting them to get involved. The wrong people will just start checking out, or they won't
yeah,
participate. And yeah, it'll be a good filtering process as well.
yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think that once when you grow, if people and if specifically leadership is part of that change, they're a lot more. There's a higher chance that they're actually going to care and want to be part of the change, and it's something that we've always done. I don't like to just show everyone what to do and tell them, you need to get there, but it's more about, it's a conversation. Here's where I want to take the company in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. How do we get there? And it's always a conversation. How do we get there? What do we need to do to get there? And it doesn't just, you know, limited to what can your team do to get there, but it's kind of cross company, well, more like cross team discussion, where sometimes acquisitions is going to have some ideas about how asset management, what they can do differently, or kind of different strategies they can use, different even softwares that they can use. And so it's a very interesting conversation that we do on a quarterly basis. But yeah, what you said makes a lot of sense. And it's managing people is the most important thing for any founder, and it's something that I think it's very hard to delegate, and it's really easy to get lost in the bunch of 5,000 tasks you need to do, but these are the most important things. So
Well, I can tell just from our brief conversation today that you've learned to lead by involving people and getting them connected. Um, but even in this last little part here where you've said, I've come to them, here's what I see for the future, and get their ideas on how to get there. I think that's effective. I think it's even more effective to take them through some processes, and I shared some exercises, but to take them through an experience that has them thinking about how to articulate the issues that need to be solved together.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
it's a little bit more of a bottoms up approach than a tops down. Even if you're inviting participation, all all the ideas don't need to come from you. And I don't think you were saying that, but if you're like, here's what I'm seeing, you still get to bring that to the planning process. You get to bring your visionary views of the world. But if they're right next to you sharing some of their views, I don't know. I just found that the enrollment and the connection to it just really goes up. So thank you so much for sharing that issue with us. I know a lot of business owners have that same challenges. They're trying to move through these stages of business growth, and they're trying to
yeah,
bring people along with them. It's one that we all can benefit from. So it's
yeah,
been great.
a-
Ellie, if, pe-
absolutely.
if people want to learn more about Blue Lake Capital or connect with you online, how would they do that?
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to learn about us or talk about investing with us, you can Google Blue Lake Capital. Our website is bluelake-capital.com, or you can, send us an email to info@bluelake-capital.com. I hope all the information is going to show going to be in the show notes. But as such, if you go to our website, there's an easy way to leave your information there, and somebody will get back to you pretty quickly. But yeah, these are the many ways to reach out to us and connect with us.
Very good. Thank you, Ellie. And for all of you listening, please share, review, like, comment, get this episode and all the other ones that we're producing out there in front of as many seven-figure business owners as possible. We have real successful business owners sharing real insights and real challenges that they're still working on. And by us having these conversations, we're looking to help as many seven-figure business owners as possible. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time for another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.